Okay, shalom. We are up to the next sugya, which is the 38th mitzvah of the Torah, which is a Cohen Gadol shisa nara besulah. That a Cohen Gadol has to marry a nara, which we'll see is a girl of a certain age, who is a virgin. So that is the mitzvah that we're going to be looking at, and let's get started here. Okay, so the pasuk says v'hu isha besulah yikach, that he should take a besulah. Now, here is the interesting thing. Okay, it says that he should marry a besulah, which seems to be that he has a mitzvah to go. A Cohen Gadol has the mitzvah to go ahead and marry a besulah. Okay, this is like I have to wear tzitzis, and the Cohen Gadol has to wear tzitzis, and he has to put on tefillin. So he has a mitzvah to marry a besulah. It's a strange type of a mitzvah. Besulah is a virgin, so that's what we call besulah. The mitzvah says as follows: so mitzvah lamaches, he should siva ha-Cohen Gadol shisa besulah. Okay, so the 38th mitzvah is that a Cohen Gadol should marry a besulah. V'hu amru, v'hu isha besulah yikach. Uber amru, ose haya Rabbi Kiva mamzer filu mechayeve aseh. Uber zeh, kishe Cohen Gadol ba'al bil se besulah shiasur lo ba'aseh. So Rabbi Kiva says that you were not allowed to have the Cohen Gadol. He would violate an aseh if he went ahead and married a girl that wasn't a besulah. Shahashorish etzleinu lava ba mechlal aseh, because we have a principle that a prohibition that comes out of a positive command is a mitzvah. Is a positive command. So why? What do we mean here? Okay, so it's not really that the Cohen Gadol has to, as when he's a Cohen Gadol, at some point he has to marry a besulah. It's that if the Cohen Gadol gets married, he can't marry anybody but a besulah. So this mitzvah actually operates as a prohibition, meaning that it says that the Cohen Gadol can't get married to anybody else but a besulah. So it works out that it's actually an isser. So if it's an isser, if it's a prohibition, how's it an aseh? So this fits into a category called a lav haba mechlal aseh, right? So you can see it here, right? That a prohibition that stems from an aseh. It says v'hu isha besulah yikach, that it says that he should take a besulah, which is an aseh. So even though the aseh really creates a lot aseh, that he's not allowed to marry somebody else, it's still counted as an aseh. We're going to have to explain this. Okay, so this is not a lot aseh, it's not a prohibition, it's an aseh, it's a mitzvah. Right? Okay, so he proves it. Okay, so it seems like this is an isser though. So how do we understand that? Okay, in the Parish of Mishnayos, the Rambam says as follows. This is fascinating, and to understand how this works. All prohibitions in the Torah can be split into 7 categories. Six of them you don't get makos for, and only one of them you do get makos for. What do I mean by lavin? Asked the Rambam. It means that when I have an azhara, I have a warning not to do something, a prohibition. Whether it's one of the 4 different languages of Isser, like Shmira or Azhara, Shahaya Lav Haba Mechlal Aseh, or as we're about to learn, a Lav Haba Mechlal Aseh, right? That's the category that we're talking about here. And this is what he says. So remember, he said there were 7 categories. This is the 5th one. Lav Haba Mechlal Aseh, a prohibition that stems from a mitzvah aseh. Now remember, this is the Rambam's 5th of 7 categories of prohibitions, and yet it's an aseh. Could go on Amru Cohen Gadol who isha besulah yikach. So he gives our example of a Cohen Gadol having to marry a besulah. Mashma she'asur l'kachas besulah. So it seems like it's forbidden for him to marry anybody but a besulah. Aval kevan shelo nemar lanu be'ula lo yikach. But since the pasuk doesn't say you can't take a woman that's already been intimate, right? So since it doesn't say that, im avar v'nasa be'ula ein a chayav makos. So if he does violate this and does marry a girl who's not a besulah, so he doesn't get malchus. Or grusho, and that's different than, let's say, a Cohen who marries a divorcee. A Cohen's not allowed to marry a divorcee. If he marries a divorcee, then he does get malchus because that's usher, right? It's an isser in the Torah. So he's not allowed to take that. It doesn't say that it's not an assay. That those are straight out prohibitions. Okay, so here you have, right, that a babachal assay is counted as an assay, yet the Rambam concludes it as the fifth of 7 categories of lavin. So what's if you want to say it's an assay, which is clear that the Rambam is saying it's an assay, then why does the Rambam put this as the fifth of the 7 categories of lot assays? How does that work? Of lavin, is this an assay or is it a lav? Okay, that's got to be our question. Okay, the Rambam in Hilchos Brachos and in Shiur, we're going to be spending a lot of time just on the thought process of how this works. Says as follows: there are some mitzvahs that a person must run after and do them. Okay, you can go in tefillin, right? I can't wait around to put on my tefillin. Every day I have to put on my tefillin. Sukkah, I have to live in sukkah. I have to wave a lulav. I have to listen to the shofar blast. These are obligatory. Because a person always has to do these mitzvahs. There are some mitzvahs that are not obligatory. They seem like they're optional almost. You go mezuzah, umaka, right? Like, so putting a mezuzah on my door is optional. Putting a maka, fence on my roof. What does that mean? It's optional. A person doesn't have an obligation to live in a house, right? So that's a chayiv mezuzah. That is chayiv mezuzah. I can live in a tent my whole life, and then I never have to do the mitzvah mezuzah. I can live in a boat, a tent, my whole life, and I'm never chayiv mezuzah. And I never have to build a house to put up a fence on my roof. Right? So those mitzvahs are only obligatory once I'm in a certain situation. So they're almost like rishus. They're not things I have to do. They don't fit like they're not similar to tefillin or lulav or sukkah. Okay, fine. So the Rambam says you make a bracha on all of these types of mitzvahs. Okay, good. So I wanted to show the differentiation between a mitzvah that you have to do and a mitzvah that's optional. Okay, going on here. The Rambam says, mitzvah lava also. So we also have mitzvahs that require zero action. I have a mitzvah to love God and to have awe of God. Those don't require any action. Okay. One of the Rishonim called them the chovos halavavos, the obligations of the heart. The Rambam in his Sefer HaMitzvos says that. The Minyan HaMitzvos, he says that there are ekalabo mitzvahs shein tadiroshis avidomen kedei love as a makom zichron tamik or kriya shema tefillah brachos. There's some mitzvahs that require no action and they're just dependent on speech, right? They're not in the heart like the chovos halavavos that we saw in source number 5, but they're speech mitzvahs, davening, kriya shema, brachos, right? These are all speech. Okay, different type of mitzvahs asay. Okay. We're going to start a second part of the shiur here. This is the second part of the shiur, second idea here. The Rambam says, mitzvah say, Cohen Gadol, shisa nar besulah. There's a positive command that a Cohen Gadol is our source here, but the Mishnah Torah should marry a nara besulah, should marry a besulah. Okay. And when she gets too old, right now, again, this is after they didn't marry. In other words, if a girl he's interested in a girl, she's a nara, then she gets older. So she's forbidden to him. Because it says that a besulah he has to marry isha. She has to be a woman, not a katana. Okay, we're going to explain all these different categories. Besulah v'lo bulgara. She has to be a besulah and not a bulgara. She can't be too much older. So she can't be a child. And she can't be too old. Loba zunara. Right. And he can't marry 2 women. Okay, the Rambam says in Kli HaMikdash, so he's forbidden to marry an almana, and he has to marry almana as a widow. He has to marry a besulah. He can't marry 2 different women. Okay, so interesting. The Rambam is basically the same halacha, right? In other words, it's in Hilchos Isory Biya, which is the laws of forbidden sexual relationships. So here the Rambam says that a Cohen Gadol has to marry a Nara besulah. And here, when he's talking about in perek of Hilchos Mikdash, which is talking about all the different halachas of a Cohen Gadol, so he repeats the halacha. So why does he have to repeat it? We already learned it. Okay, and then the Rambam says that a Cohen Gadol, this is the theme of perek of Mikdash, is Cohen Gadol tzarich sheyeh gadol mikol achav. He has to be greater than the other Kohanim. He has to be wealthier than them. He has to be smarter than them. He has to look better than them. Ein lo mamon. So let's say he's not wealthy. So all the other Kohanim give him money until he's wealthier than all of them. Okay. So this is all the halachos of Cohen Gadol are here. You can see, right? It says Cohen Gadol linho kavod batzmo. Cohen Gadol has to treat himself with greater kavod. Lo yakal batzmo sharam. He can't hang out with the rest of the nation. Below Euro, so arum, they're not allowed to see him undressed. Below beis hamerchatz, they can't see him in the bathhouse. Below beis hakisei, or in the bathroom. Look, he should stop there. They're not allowed to see him get a haircut. Shneimar Cohen Gadol me'achav. He has to be greater than his brethren, the other Kohanim. They treat him with greatness. But if he wants to bathe little, and other people are with him, he's allowed to. Okay. So my question here is, since the halachos of who a Cohen Gadol can marry applies to a Cohen Gadol, so then it should be in Hilchos Mikdash. Why does the Rambam talk about it in forbidden sexual relationships in Hilchos Isory Biya? Right? It should be all about the Cohen Gadol. Okay. Last section here we have. Okay. So just to understand, what does it mean that he has to marry a Nara besulah? So besulah we know is a virgin. What's Nara? Habas miyom le'iladaso. This is source number 11 here. Habas miyom le'idasa ad shetia bas 12 shana gemuros hine kres katana. A girl, when she's from the day she's born until she turns 12 years old, complete 12. So then she is called of Tana. V'nikres tinoka, so she's called a baby. But if she matures physically and she starts to show physical signs of maturity, then she's already past Tana, even if she's younger than 12. Now, a girl that's 12 years old in one day, she becomes what's called a Na'ara. This is the type of girl Cohen Gadol has to marry. So then, from the time she turns 12, or the time she starts to physically mature, she for the next 6 months, she's called a Nara. That's the age that the Cohen Gadol has to marry her, between the age of 12 and 12 and a half. And when she completes the 6 months, and she's now 12 and 6 months old, Tikra Bogaris. She's considered a Bogaris, an adult. The only difference between a Nara and a Bogaris is those 6 months. Okay, and those 6 months, that's when you can marry. Okay, so now, the Gemara says as follows. The Mishnah says, Cohen Gadol, this is source number 13. Lo yisa almana. Okay, you can't marry an almana. Bein almana mina Irosin, bein almana mina נישאוין. Doesn't make a difference. There's two parts, right, in marriage. So there's the Irosin and then there's the נישאוין. The Irosin's the first part. There used to be a year difference time between them. Now we do them all under the chuppah, and we read the ksuba usually in the middle to split them up. But so let's say that the woman had only become misaris. She was only we'll use the English word engaged, and then her husband died. So could a Cohen Gadol marry her? So the answer is no. He's not allowed to marry an almana. Okay, ben almana min נישאוין. It doesn't make a difference if she was fully married or only at the stage of Irosin. Okay, below Yisrael so Bogaris, and he's not allowed to marry a Bogaris. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Machshir, so they allow marrying a Bogaris. Okay, so the Gemara says Tanar Rabbanan, right? So here we have that was the Mishnah. Now we have the Gemara here. Tanar Rabbanan, Almana lo yikach ben almana mina Irosin ben almana ben נישאוין. Right? So we learned it doesn't make a difference if she was a widow after Irosin or after נישאוין. Shita, right? That seems to be obvious. Mahu the tema leilaf almana mitmar. Malahala min נישאוין mitamar. She's made malahala min נישאוין afkam min נישאוין. So why would we think that it has to be a widow only from נישואין? Why do we have to make the point that it's even from אירוסין? Because we might have learned it from Tamar, who was widowed at Tamar from the Torah, right? She was widowed. She married, remember, Yehuda's 2 sons. So she was widowed from נישואין in the end. So she was married, she was widowed from נישואין. So we might think from Tamar that it always has to be only from נישואין, right? That's what we might think. So the Gemara has to come and tell us, no, it's even from אירוסין. No. Even if a woman is a mana from Irosin, that's enough. So maybe, okay, maybe it is. Maybe it should be only from Irosin, right? So why would we think again that it's only from Irosin? It's similar to a divorcee. So just like a divorcee is not allowed to marry a Cohen, it doesn't make a difference that she only had gone through Irosin. So too, we'll say the same thing with an almana, and that's what we learn. Okay, good. So my question is, what was the havamina that a Cohen Gadol should only be prohibited from marrying a widow from נישואין and not from Irosin? So she had to go through the full process of getting married. Right? I know the Gemara says we learned it from Tamar, but what's the concept? Right? What's the concept? And how did the Gemara conclude that a Cohen Gadol should be prohibited from marrying a widow from נישואין and Irosin? Okay, that is my question. Okay, so then you have the Rambam. Hold on, you have the Rambam here. Shalosh nashim nesra kol kohanim. There are 3 types of women that are forbidden on all kohanim: grusha, zona, v'chalala. Okay, so a divorcee, a prostitute, and a woman that's a product of parents who were kohanim that married incorrectly. But Cohen Gadol arba, and a Cohen Gadol has 4 people he's not allowed to marry. The 4th one being al shalosh, the first 3 that we saw by a regular Cohen, and he's not allowed to marry an almana. He's not allowed to marry a widow. Okay, so the Gemara says here in source number 15, lo yisasa bogeres tanaraban v'hu yishab besulah yikach. The pasuk that we've always been talking about is that he should marry a besulah, prat lo bogeres. So this comes to exclude a bogeres, a girl that's 12 and a half and above. Shekala besulah, because then we assume at 12 and a half she no longer is a besulah. Divrei Meir. That's Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Machshirin bogeres. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon disagreed and said that the Cohen Gadol can marry bogeres. But my comment, what's the argument? Rabbi Meir savar besulah filo mixas besulah mashma. Rabbi Meir holds that even if she only has a little amount of besulah, that's enough. That's enough. That's okay. Besulah adika besulah, but when it says besuleha in the pasuk, right? If the pasuk had only said besulah, so then that would have said even if she only has a little besulin, right? Whatever that means, but that's the idea. But now that it says besuleha in the pasuk, v'hu isha b'besuleha, you can see here it says b'besuleha. Okay, on the top line here. So that teaches us something more, that she has to have all besulim. In other words, I think the idea here is that at 12 and a half, a woman starts to lose the signs of her virginity. So therefore, she has to get married before that happens. But, right, if it only said besulah, so we'd say as long as she still has some of the signs of being a besulah, that's enough. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, Savri besulah, right? So Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon disagreed. Besulah shlema mashma. If it had only said besulah, that would mean that she needed to be full besulah. Besulah v'afilo mixas besulah. So he says even if there's a little, then she still can marry a Kohen. That's his idea. Okay, and the last thing we're going to see is just understand what this Sefer Kedusha is all about. The 5th book, which has the prohibitions of sexual relations. This is what we're going to use for our svarah. So that mitzvah is all about, that book, in the Rambam, the 5th book in the Rambam, Sefer Kedusha, is all about things that are forbidden, like foods, and forbidden sexual relationships. Because it's in these 2 areas that Baruch Hu separated us from the nations, right? In sexual relationships and in foods. And these 2 things is what Baruch Hu said, I'll separate you from the nations. And this Sefer is Sefer Kedusha. Okay, so just to review the questions, our question is, what's the nature of this mitzvah that a Cohen Gadol has to marry a besulah? We wanted to know that since the halacha of who the Cohen Gadol can marry applies to the Cohen Gadol, it should be in perek Hey of Kli HaMikdash that deals with the laws of the Cohen Gadol. So why is it in the laws of Isory Biya, the laws of forbidden sexual relations? What's the havamina that Cohen Gadol should only be prohibited from marrying a widow from נישאוין and not from אירוסין? How did the Gemara conclude that a Cohen Gadol should be prohibited from marrying a widow from נישאוין and אירוסין? Why did the Rambam separate the prohibition of marrying a widow and the mitzvah to marry a besulah? Okay, we want to know in the Gemara what was Mair's svarah, what was Elazar Shimon's opinion, and what's the debate between them. Okay, so those are the questions that we have, and B'li Neder, hopefully this week on Sunday we will have Shiur.